Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know, it's always the same hypocrisy, right? The same people screeching about democracy every sentence seem to have zero interest in actually respecting or preserving the actual values of democracy, and the point's proven on the issue of immigration. Immigration, whether to let people into your country and do irreversible demographic and cultural change, is arguably one of the most important long-term decisions a nation can make. But of course, these Democrats want to bypass that conversation. They want to bypass democracy on these issues and use cheap fear and racial tactics to will their radical policy agendas into existence. This forced influx of mass migration and the attempted redefining of what it is to be American, this globalist idea of moving people and destroying statehood, well, they want to shame you into silence while they force it upon you. And so let's take a look at their shady tactics and expose what the true agenda is here. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so take a look at this clip. Let's start off over here with Julio Rosas, who absolutely torched a panel of Democrats at the Homeland Security Committee.
I'm here testifying today as a proud Latino, but most importantly, I'm here as an American citizen. This is my country, this is my home, this is where I grew up in. And that is why the rhetoric coming from one side of the aisle about these operations saying, no, we got to keep our cheap labor so that we can maintain our standard of living proves that they want to view Latinos simply as a underclass to siphon votes from and fearmonger from every time that there's an election. They're content with keeping us as that servant underclass, and that is why it is disgusting to see them criticize that recent raid in Ventura County where they found unaccompanied minors working alongside convicted sex offenders at a cannabis farm. No, we got to keep them there because or else how else are we going to get high if we can't have unaccompanied minors harvest our weed? It's quite frankly despicable. And the last thing I want to say is that the last time I appeared before this committee, we had one member say that Antifa is just an ideology, it's not a movement, by using an outdated quote from the FBI director. Well, coming back from Los Angeles, Seattle, and Portland just this past month with the recent riots, I can tell you that Antifa is very real, and the fact that they are also connected to that recent attempted ambush at that ICE facility in Texas. So I just wanted to reflect for the record that I was right then, I'm right now, that Antifa is very real and they're very dangerous.
And that right there, that's the distinction. He hit the nail on the head. The Democrats play this scummy racial game where they put people into identity boxes and then use emotional propaganda and guilt trip tactics into forcing them to fall in line. They have to vote to open borders, the destruction of the country's identity, because it's a Latino issue. And that's why the left was probably seething at that part right over there, where he said, but most importantly, I'm here as an American citizen. That right there is exactly what needs to be said to cut right through the BS. You know, like this from BS artist, CNN's favorite, Anna Navarro.
I want to respond to you saying that I was hyperbolic when I talked about a reign of terror.
Because that is hyperbolic.
No, it might be hyperbolic for you as a white man.
Oh, okay.
It's certainly not hyperbolic for me as a
racist.
Latino. No, I'm not being racist.
It's incredible to dismiss my opinion for being a white man.
No, I'm not dismissing your opinion. I am telling you that what the Latino community, the brown community in America.
Speak in one voice.
Okay, well, let me speak with my voice. I mean, you said I was being hyperbolic. Let me respond.
Racially, sure.
I'm not. You being a white man as an insult?
When you invoke it to dismiss my
being a white man as an insult?
When you invoke it,
do you think Latinos are living under circumstances that other people may not be right now in this country?
I'm sure you caught it. Don't you think Latinos are experiencing something in the country? Again, this blanket identity politics label to create this monolithic political ideology or structure that all Latinos must be a part of. I mean, you could smell the manipulation, but one thing in my view needs to be made clear, and that's that illegal migrant does not equate to Latino. And it's not a Latino issue, it's not a civil rights issue for literally anybody who might have South American heritage. It's a freaking law enforcement issue. And if your brain was wired to think from an American perspective, I mean, it should appear quite obvious. But the biggest issue is the subversion of democracy on the issue of immigration. You know, the Uniparty is clearly involved in this globalist vision of the New World Order, and they say things like, well, population growth is an economic necessity and we aren't having enough babies. We need more workers. And sure, you know, growth matters, but so does consent. Democrats democratic consent. This idea that America is some sort of corporate plantation where Goldman Sachs calls the frickin' shots, quick import another 20 million illegal migrants to prop up the GDP as we totally deface a nation. There's just such an ugly nature to what's going on. It's undemocratic. If a country is to receive massive influx of immigration, well, it should happen from political consensus, from enough people in the country supporting increasing the immigration levels, and then politicians representing the respective districts going to Washington and voting in majority for that to be the official American policy. That's the way it's supposed to work. But Democrats, with their lazy racial games and lazy emotional games and lazy economic arguments of endless economic growth on the backs of an underclass that they've created, they think that they could just make it happen by essentially going through the frickin' back door. It's absolutely disgraceful. And if it's not the identity politics, then it's the weak emotional stuff, like the CNN portrayals of people being deported to Mexico.
Sasha Mendoza has the impossible task of packing up her family's life in Pittsburgh into a handful of suitcases.
I've literally never felt anxiety the way that I have in the last few years here.
So you are saying bye to the U.S. for good?
For good, yeah. Yeah, for good.
Fearful of President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown, Sasha, her husband Julio, and their 3 kids are leaving behind the life they built together. Julio is an undocumented immigrant from Mexico. Sasha and their 3 children are all U.S. citizens. They decided to make the move together only moments after Trump took office.
There was an executive order being signed, and that was her call for, said, what do you think about moving to Mexico?
Julio crossed the U.S. southern border when he was 11 years old, and he's lived in Pittsburgh ever since.
What made Trump a second term more nerve-wracking for you, that to come to a decision that you had to leave the country?
There are no limits. There are no limits on being a target. The only main concern is he looks brown, he looks different, he don't speak English. He's the one.
They were confronted with their worst nightmare when Gilmar Abreu Garcia was mistakenly deported to a notorious mega prison in El Salvador.
I can see myself in that, and I don't want us to wait until we're in the same situation.
There are people who will say, you came to the U.S. illegally, why didn't you do it the right way? What do you say to people?
If you were to be put in my situation at my age to tell me do it the right way, the whole process pretty much takes about 15 to 20 years. By that time, I don't think my kids or anyone's kids who are starving or in a dangerous situation can wait 15, 20 years for you to come here and start working.
Cue the tiny frickin' violin, but if you think about it, if you put it into proper context, the way Democrats make it seem is as if these people are being sent to the frickin' gulags or concentration camps. They're being sent back to Mexico. Oh, it's a hellscape, as if Mexico looks something like this, when in reality, this is Mexico. Oh no, you're being deported back to your home country. It's an absolute travesty. No, it's not. Again, economic migration is not a real thing. At least it doesn't qualify for asylum or refugee status. No, being a real refugee is a very clearly defined concept. This idea that sending people back to their homes after they thought that they could break the law and get away with it, as if that's some sort of civil rights violation of catastrophic evil magnitude. It's just such a freaking LARP. And it's obviously just a fake news propaganda play to bait people into not thinking with their brain, but rather thinking through their skin color or their emotions or lack of emotional control, so they can then blindly support the globalist vision. The American people have been robbed of their voice on this issue for decades, and their country has been irreversibly changed, and now they cry when there's a soft, very surface level reckoning happening. A little pushback, a little law enforcement. You should never be surprised when the exploitation comes to an end. Inevitably, it always does. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.